cannot fathom why we've been assigned to desk duty in the archives for the 3rd week in a row.
Spare me the reminder. It's a real waste of potential and talent if you ask me.
Whose?
Yours, obviously. But honestly, Veritas, we're centurions of the Roman Guard. We should be patrolling the city, eliminating crime, leading battalions, anything except for this boring archival work. What does it matter what happened decades ago?
We're never going to find this obscure land claim to Galilee's Zone 13 that the praetor requested, at least not amongst all of these other trivial reports. Investigating reports sounds so interesting until you find out what people are actually reporting about. A broken carriage, a missing goat, a stolen sheep. We're going to be looking through these forever.
Doesn't help that the area around Galilee Zone 13 was especially troublesome at that time.
What do you mean?
Well, it seems like there was a great amount of commotion. Around 30 AD, the field reports that year almost tripled. I wonder why.
Oh yes, that's when that preacher was making miraculous appearances back from the dead.
What? That preacher? Which preacher?
Remember that Nazarene fellow that the Romans crucified 50 years ago?
Oh, yeah, I do remember him. He's gained a substantial following since then.
Yep, and it's been nothing but a headache for Rome. It's a whole sect based on deception.
But how do you know it was a deception?
Are you kidding? Of course it was a deception. For starters, people don't just come back from the dead, Lucilius.
Well, don't you think we should at least investigate the reports?
I mean, it is way more interesting than this zoning claim. And we have access to all the Roman Empire's archives, the grandest database in history. We can find out anything we want.
Wow, sounds thrilling.
Think about it. If we investigate it and find out what really happened with this Jesus fellow, 1, we can become famous for putting all of the rumors to rest. 2, we're discrediting a religion. And 3, we would be relieving Rome from all the inconveniences that come with it.
Exactly. He was the talk of a whole religion.
And if we solve this, we can even earn recognition from the praetor of Capernaum.
That would mean no more boring archival work. Okay, I'm in. Where should we start?
See what the people are writing about it, and then we'll further examine it ourselves.
Will do, boss.
Oh, Lucilius, you're back. So, what did you find?
Well, we've managed to find 4 letters that report about this Jesus person.
Great. Who are they written by?
So, 2 of the letters were supposedly written by this rabbi's disciples, a fisherman named John and Matthew, a tax collector.
A tax collector? I thought you said this man was Jewish. A Jewish rabbi wouldn't associate with a tax collector for Rome. Whatever. Continue.
And the 3rd letter is written by a Mark. There were several alleged sightings of this Jesus person reported at his home.
Interesting. Who else?
Lastly, we have a letter by this doctor named Luke. The letters write about the life, death, and life again of this Jesus person. But when they get to the parts where they talk about his life again, it gets a little weird.
Sure it does.
To be honest, boss, I find the reports make really little sense. We have 4 different accounts of what happened, but they all seem to contradict each other.
Oh, I see. Over here, when we get to the part of the letter where it describes the woman who first saw Jesus risen from the dead, it's all different.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, each letter refers to different times when the woman came to the tomb. Matthew writes that they came to the tomb as it began to dawn. Mark claims that they came very early in the morning. The physician Luke agrees that it was very early in the morning, but John wrote that they went to the tomb early while it was still dark. So
when did the woman go?
Well, it says here that they came from Bethany, and if the tomb is in Jerusalem, according to my calculations, that's like 2 miles away.
Well, maybe John described when the woman initially left for the tomb, while the other writers described when the woman arrived. If they lodged in Bethany, then the woman would have to travel around 2 miles to reach the burial site. Plenty of time for the sun to rise.
I guess that makes sense. Say, do you think we can still locate these women today?
Find them? 50 years later? How?
We work for the Roman guard. We can find anybody.
Like, where would we even start?
Well, Luke names Mary Magdalene, Mary mother of James, and Joanna, and the other woman as those who came to the tomb, right? Joanna. That could very well be Joanna, the wife of Chusa.
Am I supposed to know who that is?
Joanna and her family were very wealthy and distinguished to the Romans. I heard she even followed this preacher, and she even supported him with her own financial resources. If we can locate her, perhaps we can locate the other woman as well.
Interview the woman? Their word barely holds up in court. What's the value in that?
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, regardless, it seems that these men testified to their accounts, so they must be somewhat credible. Besides, we can further confirm their accounts later on with the men. But it might be insightful to start deducing what happened, or at least what they claim happened.
Whatever you say, boss. Boss, just as you predicted, we found Joanna and Salome in their home in Antioch. They were worshiping with some other Jesus followers.
Oh, yes, wonderful. Bring them in.
Here's Joanna and Salome. They claim they are eyewitnesses.
Thank you for joining us, ladies. Joanna. Hello.
It's not we had much of a choice now, did we?
What was that?
Nothing. How may we be of service, Centurion? Well, years ago, you guys were eyewitnesses of the alleged appearances of the so-called Jesus of Nazareth after his death, right? Indeed.
We have some questions for you.
Is that a threat?
Salome. Not to fear. You guys aren't in any danger. You see, we are archivists responsible for the maintenance and inquiries of the Roman Empire. You have my word.
Fine. I can trust her, I guess.
Well, thank you. We have certain written letters by a certain Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Do you know any of these men? We do. We're having trouble making sense of their accounts. First off, how many of you women went to the tomb? There were about 7 of us.
8 of us, including Mary Magdalene.
Mary Magdalene, was that the one mentioned in John's detailed accounts?
Let's see. Yes, boss, it is. As you can see over here.
Where might we find her?
That's a good question. We can hardly find her these days.
She's been going from district to district, preaching the good news to every civilian and even emperor that will listen.
Good news. What good news?
That Jesus is risen, of course. Oh, that Nazarene fellow. People are still talking about him. Are they? How could they not? Okay, well, how do you explain the stone of Jesus' tomb being rolled away?
The angels.
The angels?
You're sticking to that one, huh?
Well, how do these so-called angels look like? They were in the form of men.
So, they were men.
No, the form of men. Aren't you listening?
Well, how do you know they weren't just men?
Because men aren't angels.
They were dressed in white and glowed like lightning. Something unearthly about them for sure.
You know an angel when you see one, and you know a man when you see one. Or don't see one.
Okay, well, how many of these angel men were there? Matthew and Mark claim 1 angel, while Luke and John claim 2. So how many of them were there? We saw 2.
Well, actually, boss, if you look over here, the Matthew and Mark account say there was an angel there. But it doesn't only specify that there was 1 angel there.
Oh, yes. Great job picking up on that, Lucilius.
Thanks, boss.
Thanks, boss.
What did these angel men tell you? They said Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified, he is risen. He is not here. And that we should quickly go tell his disciples that they should move ahead of him to Galilee, and there they will see him. Okay, ladies. Please continue where you left off. You say you saw 2 angel men. What happened next? Well, after we went to go tell the male disciples. And where were the male disciples? They were staying in Mary and Martha and Lazarus' home in Bethany.
Yes, and when we were on our way back home, Jesus appeared to us himself.
The same Jesus that was crucified by Pilate? Mm-hmm.
So, that Jesus was now alive Jesus?
Yes, aren't you listening?
Well, forgive us. It's a little hard to believe.
What did he tell you? He said greetings. Or did he say rejoice?
Well, either way, we couldn't believe our eyes and ears. We were overjoyed.
Yes, and he also said, do not be afraid. Go and tell my brethren to go to Galilee, and there they will see me.
And that's when we fell to the ground, held him by the feet, and worshipped him.
Wait, something's not making sense here. John writes that Jesus first appeared to Mary Magdalene, but wasn't she with you women?
No, actually, she was not. She got separated from us at the tomb.
What happened when he appeared to her?
You would have to ask her yourself.
Veritas, I've got news that the praetor requires our immediate attention.
Can't this wait?
No, he says it's important.
Okay, ladies. Very well then. You're free to go now. We will summon you if we have any more questions.
You are dismissed.
Yeah, we got it. Thanks.
Veritas, how do you go?
The praetor, he's on to us.
On to us? What do you mean?
Well, he's concerned that we're falling short on our regular duties and workload, and I'm worried that he suspects that we're distracted by something.
Well, did you tell him we're investigating this controversial figure?
No, he's just gonna dismiss that as inconsequential. We need to show him that it's worth his time and his concern.
But we haven't even found anything noteworthy yet.
Yes, that's why we need to hurry and find out the facts.
Don't tell me you believe their story. Sounds like a bunch of baloney. And that Salome lady, she has a major attitude.
I don't know. The facts seem to line up reasonably enough. Say, do you think that there's anybody else we can bring into question?
Anybody else? Like who?
Any of the men?
Like Jesus' male disciples?
Yes.
I could get my men to look into it. In the meantime, we found that lady from Magdala.
Wonderful. I'd like to interview her.
No problem, boss. Veritas, here we have Mary Magdalene. Please, have a seat.
Good afternoon, Mary Magdalene. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Centurions. How may I be of assistance today?
Well, we're interested in hearing your accounts on the events surrounding Jesus of Nazareth's death and his alleged appearances. We've spoken to the other women, but the events we've heard so far seem to be puzzling.
Oh, I'm willing to provide any clarification that you may need.
Yeah, something still doesn't make sense about the story. According to every single account, Mary Magdalene, you went to the tomb with the other women early in the morning.
Yes, that's correct.
But what happened next? How come you got separated from them?
I immediately went to call for John and Peter in Jerusalem.
And then what happened?
Then myself, John, and Peter went to investigate the tomb. But all they found were the linen wrappings just lying there, and the burial cloth that had been on Jesus' head folded in place by itself. Then John and Peter went home. I couldn't bear to be anywhere else, so I stayed at the tomb.
And then what happened?
Then I began weeping. Eventually, I entered the tomb, and I saw two men in white sitting on either side, though I hardly gave them much attention. I was so deep in my despair, I barely even noticed them. It was only later that I realized that they were angels.
Angels? Did they say anything?
Yes. They asked me why I was crying, and I said, "They have taken my Lord away from me, and I do not know where they have put him."
Well, why didn't you recognize him at first? Matter of fact, why were you asking about his body as if he was still there? Had not the angels told you that he was already risen from the dead and that he would meet the other disciples in Galilee?
Well, truthfully, the first time I went to the tomb with the other women, I didn't stay long enough to see the angels myself. The moment that I saw that the stone was rolled away, I immediately turned around and sought to call for John and Peter in Jerusalem.
The woman reported seeing the angels at the tomb. Perhaps it was only when they entered the tomb to inquire further that they saw the angels.
Oh. Guards, please summon the woman again.
Thank you. Please continue, Mary.
The second time I was at the tomb, I remember dropping to my knees. I was devastated at the thought of Jesus' body being stolen. Had he not been humiliated enough? I couldn't even bear to look at the linen wrappings just lying there. It broke my heart. That's also when I saw another man's feet standing in front of me.
Who was it?
Well, at first, I thought it was the gardener. He said to me, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it that you were looking for?" So I said to him, "Sir, if you have carried the body away, tell me where you have put him, and I will retrieve it."
And then what happened?
Then he called me by name and said, "Mary." Instantly, I knew it was him. It was Jesus. And that's when I cried out, "Rabbi."
Hold on. How come you didn't recognize him at first?
Well, I remember my eyes, they were filled with tears, and I wasn't exactly looking up to see him, nor was I expecting to see him. So maybe that was a part of the reason why. But then, when he called me by my name, I instantly knew it was him.
Huh. Did he say anything?
Yes, he said, "Do not hold on to me, Mary, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and tell them I'm ascending to my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God."
Wow, I'm never excited to hear you say that story.
Salome, friends, it's good to see you, Mary.
Sir, Salome has helped us locate 3 other women who were eyewitnesses. Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary and Martha, the sisters of Lazarus from Bethany.
Have you ever seen a female centurion before?
Actually, no.
Thank you for joining us, ladies.
Well, it's not very much of a choice.
Out of choice, yeah, we know.
Let us continue where we left off, shall we? Mary.
Yes?
Oh gosh, this is going to be way harder than I thought. Mary Magdalene.
Yes?
It seems that Jesus told you the same exact thing that he told the other woman, which was to inform the other male disciples of his resurrection.
Yes.
Wait a minute. I had a question. If the woman saw the man,
Angels,
men angels,
just angels.
okay, if the other woman saw the just angels and heard their announcement about this Jesus being alive and risen, of which they went to tell the other disciples, wouldn't they have crossed paths with you, Mary, while you and Peter and John were on your way back to the tomb?
Oh yes, good inquiry, Lucilius.
Well, Mary, Peter, and John, on their way back to the tomb, did not cross paths with us when we were going to tell the other disciples, because not all the disciples were in the same place. The rest of the disciples were with Lazarus in our home back in Bethany, but Peter and John are in Jerusalem, which is westward.
Why were they there?
Well, most of the disciples initially fled after Jesus' arrest. But John and Peter stayed in Jerusalem to find out what would happen to Jesus. Peter went as far as Caiaphas' courtyard before returning, and myself and John stayed all the way up until Jesus' crucifixion. Then I assumed that Peter met up with John at his home afterwards, and that's how I knew where to find them after I saw that the stone had been rolled away and the tomb was empty.
So let me get this straight. All of you women were staying all the way in Bethany, and you all went to the tomb at the same time. But upon arriving at the empty tomb, Mary Magdalene left the women to go tell John and Peter in Jerusalem. This was right before the 2 angels appeared to the other woman. When they did appear, the woman went to tell the other disciples in Bethany. Meanwhile, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb with Peter and John, but they left soon afterward. However, Mary Magdalene stayed, and that's when the angels appeared to her, and then Jesus himself. Soon after, Jesus appeared to the woman as they were on their way to tell the other disciples in Bethany.
Yes, exactly. You got it.
But don't forget, on our way back to Bethany, we first stopped in the city where we bumped into my husband, Clopas, with some of Jesus' followers, and we reported them what we've seen, but no one believed us at all.
Yes, the men never believed us. They all dismissed it as nonsense.
Even my own husband didn't believe me at first.
Well, it was a little hard to believe.
Clopas!
Jesus isn't the only one who has an appearance, you know.
Dear Clopas!
Are you well?
Yes, I'm well, dear. How are you?
Thank God. Sir, you have managed to locate one of the male followers of Jesus, specified in the accounts. Thank you.
Welcome, Clopas.
I trust you have been kind to my friends.
Not to worry, they're in good company.
Although not all of them have been good company to us.
No need to worry about us, Clopas. How are the brothers?
They are well by God's grace, brother. Centurions, how may I be of service?
We're investigating the eyewitnesses' accounts of the sightings of Jesus of Nazareth after he allegedly rose from the dead.
Ah, yes, well, you're talking to the right people.
So, Clopas, you did not believe these women's testimonies?
I did not at first, but I sure know the wife is always right.
What do you mean?
Well, after we had met my wife and the other women in the city, I followed the disciple that along the original maid. A mysterious man joined us along the way, and he asked us about what we were talking about. So I said to him, "Where have you been? Have you not heard all the commotion about Jesus of Nazareth?" He spoke to us, and there was something so strange and intriguing about him that we begged him to spend the night with us. It was only when he broke bread with us that we finally recognized that he was Jesus.
Hold on a moment. This again? Why didn't you recognize him?
That's a good question, my friend. It's because we cannot see him unless he reveals himself to us first.
Reveals himself?
What transpired after that?
He vanished that instant. We returned to Jerusalem right away to inform the rest of the disciples. We later found out that Jesus had appeared to Peter also that same day.
Peter.
Peter.
May the Lord repose his soul.
He was one of Jesus' disciples?
Yes, the most faithful believer of us all.
Yet he paid the price with his life.
And he never denied Jesus again.
What happened to him?
He was killed by the Emperor Nero in Rome.
Oh, yeah. Nero is known for his particularly aggressive crackdown on these Jesus followers, even going as far as crucifying them upside down.
That sounds so extreme.
What occurred next, Clopas, after Jesus appeared to Peter?
Well, after that, we all regrouped in Jerusalem. Of course, we were all still scared and locked in a room because we were afraid of being found and arrested too. That same evening, as we were talking about all of Jesus' appearances and all the events that occurred, Jesus himself appeared to us all.
Yes, it was extraordinary.
He appeared to all of you at the same time?
Except Thomas.
Yes, he chose the most inopportune day to miss.
So you all saw him?
Yes.
Did he say anything to you?
He said, "Peace be with you. As the Father sent me, I am sending you."
Oh, and he also said, receive the Holy Spirit.
The holy what?
But then he vanished, remember?
No, but then he appeared again. Remember that one time with Thomas?
Oh yeah, but then
Sisters, please, from the court.
pardon us. It's so exciting to recall, as you can imagine.
Sure. Was that the last time you saw him?
No, he was appearing again and again for a period of 40 days or so.
Well, were there any others that saw him besides his professed disciples or followers?
Yes. He appeared to more than 500 people at once. I believe it was on the hillside in Galilee.
I see.
Are you sure they weren't just hallucinating? Just seeing things?
Pardon me, Centurion, but I'm sure you know that that suggestion is absurd. How can more than 500 people all have the same hallucination at once?
Indeed, there were many people who saw him at that time, even till today.
That's right, Centurions. Who knows? You may even see him yourselves one day.
Is that right?
Well, thank you for your time. You are free to disperse.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, officers. We got it.
Just know, if you seek the truth with all your heart, you will find it. In fact, it will find you.
And what is the truth?
Not what, but who.
What do you think? Does that seem compelling to you?
Well, let's see where we left off. After seeing the angels, the woman went to tell the brethren in Bethany, but they ran into Clopas and told them what happened. Then Clopas went to Emmaus, and the woman went to Bethany. While they were each on their way, Jesus appeared to both of the men on their way to Emmaus and the woman on their way to Bethany. And then Jesus appeared again to Peter somewhere, and then he appeared to all of them in Jerusalem.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. How could he have shown up to so many places at once that are miles away from each other?
Well, they did mention that he was able to appear suddenly and vanish instantly.
Well, either Jesus gained some impressive teleportation skills, or the disciples completely made this up.
I don't know. There must be an explanation. We're so close to finding the truth.
You're so close to losing your job.
Vader, what are you doing here?
The question is, what are you doing here?
We're just investigating some archival inconsistencies.
What is inconsistent? Your unacceptable work turnaround time. Where are the Zone 13 documents I requested for 3 days ago? I have a neighboring governor trying to collect taxes from the migrant pilgrims. I have to prove that it's under my jurisdiction.
You'll have those right away, sir.
This is your last warning. Don't make me have to storm down here myself again. The smell down here is repulsive anyways.
I hope it was worth it to you. Putting our jobs on the line? And for what?
What? How is this even my fault? Weren't you the one who wanted to investigate this all in the first place? Plus, we figured out who, where, when. But the most obvious question of this whole story, how?
How what?
How could someone really die and rise again to appear to all of these people?
I don't know why you're so focused on this right now. Weren't you the one who at the beginning said this was nothing but one big hoax? How do we even know he died? maybe he survived the crucifixion.
That's impossible. If there's one thing that the Romans are proficient at, it's executing their threats. They would never let a man live through a crucifixion.
Maybe his disciples just took his body and hired a Jesus lookalike?
That would be a plausible explanation, except
Except what now?
why would that disciple Peter willingly die such an excruciating death, all for a lie that he knows he was a part of? A person can die for a lie that's been told to them, but why die for a lie that you know you fabricated yourself? It would only make sense for him to renounce his belief in this Jesus man, since maintaining a lie, it's not worth a man's life. He must have saw something, someone real.
You're gonna keep searching for this, aren't you? Why don't you just let this go?
I can't, it feels so important. I don't know.
Well, sorry, boss. I have work to do. I don't want to lose my job for this. I'm gonna go do work. Are you even listening?
How does one die and live again?
By overcoming death.
And how does one even do that?
I already have. Do not be afraid.
Who are you?
Who do you say that I am?
I can't say for certain.
Ah, yes. Certainty. Truth. You long for it, Veritas. That's the meaning of your name.
How do you know who I am?
I have always known you. I know you have been searching for the truth. And by seeking it, you begin the journey. But you will not reach it on your own. Follow me, and I will lead the way.
The way where?
To true life.
Why are you here?
To give you life, and life more abundantly, so that you never truly die, but live eternally, with me.
But how?
Believe in me. Be with me.
But who are you?
I am the way, the truth, the life.